Pray for him. We're in trouble. But I'm going to do this song for you, baby.
Well, thank you.
To the world, Loretta and Doolittle Lynn were the rough-around-the-edges love story that defined country music. But as Loretta grew older, the cracks beneath that story widened, revealing a truth she had buried for most of her life. The man who helped her become a star also broke her in ways she never fully healed from. And when she finally opened up about the betrayals, the heartbreak, the sacrifices, the revelations reshaped her legacy. In the years leading up to her death, those truths lingered like ghosts she could no longer ignore. What she endured, what she exposed, and what it ultimately cost her is a story far more haunting than anyone expected. Born in a hollow of hardship, Loretta Lynn began life as Loretta Webb, born in 1932 in the tiny, tucked-away community of Butcher Hollow, Kentucky. This wasn't a bustling town or anything close to it. It was a small pocket of Appalachia just outside Van Leer, a place built almost entirely around coal. According to the Van Leer Historical Society, the area once relied on 5 major coal mines, all controlled by the Consolidation Coal Company. Van Leer was what many called a classic company town, where the mining company owned most of the buildings, controlled the wages, and even paid miners in company-issued currency instead of real money. The Kentucky Coal Education Project explains just how harsh that world could be. Low wages, long hours, and strict efforts to prevent unions kept many families, Loretta's included, locked in a cycle of deep, generational poverty. The Webbs eventually had 8 children, and trying to keep that many little ones fed was a daily battle. Loretta's father worked in the mines, scraping together what he could, while the family stretched every dollar, every scrap, every resource. Life in Butcher Hollow was what many would call hard scrabble living. The Webbs were so poor that Loretta's mother, Clara, made her daughter's skirts out of old flour sacks. And hardship arrived early. At just 11 months old, Loretta suffered a severe ear infection, so severe that doctors had to drill 2 holes into her skull to reach the infection. The family couldn't afford an overnight stay in the hospital, so every day, Clara walked 10 miles to the Golden Rule Hospital in Paintsville, so her baby could receive treatment. Many neighbors didn't believe Loretta would survive. Years later, Clara even received a letter asking about the little girl who was gonna die, and she proudly wrote back that her daughter was very much alive. The scars from those procedures remained with Loretta her entire life, influencing her choice to wear her hair long. That early illness also delayed her ability to walk until she was 4. And the medical troubles didn't stop there. A separate leg infection put her back in the hospital, where a nursing mix-up even resulted in her cousin Marie receiving one of her shots by accident. Hunger was no stranger in the Webb household. Going without food or basic necessities wasn't exceptional. It was simply their reality. Loretta's early years unfolded during the Great Depression, a time when many families struggled to meet even the most basic needs. The Webbs lived in a 1-room cabin with no electricity, no running water, and no indoor plumbing. Clara, resourceful as ever, found ways to make the small home feel a bit more alive. She decorated the walls with magazine pages, one of which featured actress Loretta Young, the inspiration behind her daughter's name. When the bitter Appalachian winters set in, Clara pasted pages from the Sears catalog across the walls to help block the drafts and insulate the cabin. Life in Butcher Hollow was simple and repetitive. Chores, church, neighbors, and the daily effort of caring for a large family in a small space. 10 people crowded into that cabin, and it's easy to imagine a young girl gazing out the window, wondering if her world would ever get bigger. And soon enough, an unexpected path out of those hills would begin to open for her. The man who changed everything. The turning point in Loretta Lynn's early life began when she was still just a teenager. That was when she met the man who would shape her future in profound and complicated ways. Oliver Vanetta Lynn, better known as Doolittle, or simply Doo. Their first meeting took place at a small pie auction in Butcher Hollow. Though the event was officially meant to raise money for the local school, everyone knew it also doubled as a quiet matchmaking ground. Dew, freshly out of the army, noticed Loretta's shy brunette beauty immediately. He bid on her pie, won it, and earned the chance to walk her home. For Loretta, the attraction was instant. Dew seemed charming, bold, and romantic. But beneath that confident exterior, he carried a reputation everyone in town knew too well. People whispered that he drank heavily, chased women, and might even be running moonshine. Still, Loretta was just 15, swept up in first love, and the warnings didn't register the way they should have. She married 21-year-old Dew despite her parents' strong objections. Looking back, the red flags were there from the beginning. Her parents had bluntly told her not to see him again, saying he was too wild and far too old. Her mother refused to sign the marriage papers or attend the ceremony, and her father never fully accepted the man his daughter had chosen. To make matters worse, Dew broke his promises almost immediately. Promises to treat Loretta gently and never take her far from her family. According to Loretta, the harsh reality of their marriage revealed itself within hours. She later shared that, after she innocently repeated a rhyming joke she didn't understand, Dew reacted by putting her over his lap and hitting her. It was a shocking beginning to a marriage that would be marked by both dedication and deep tumult. Not long after the wedding, Loretta became pregnant. Soon after, Dew announced they were moving to Washington State so he could work in logging. The relocation pulled her far from her family, especially her father, Melvin Webb, who was facing his own hardships after a stroke pushed him out of the mines and into factory work in Indiana. While living in Washington, Loretta began experiencing unsettling dreams about her father, seeing him dressed in a blue suit and lying in a wine-colored coffin. The dream repeated itself with painful clarity. Tragically, those visions soon became reality when her father died of a stroke at just 52. His body was brought home to Kentucky, where he was laid to rest in the family cemetery. In the midst of grief, Loretta became a young mother to 4 children in quick succession: Betty Sue in 1948, Jack Benny in 1949, followed by Ernest Ray and Clara Marie in the early 1950s. And somehow, between raising babies and managing a difficult marriage, she still found moments to sing. Dew, for all his faults, saw her potential before she could see it in herself. Realizing her greatest obstacle was her lack of confidence, he went to Sears and bought her a $17 guitar. Then he pushed her constantly, insisting she was every bit as talented as the artists she admired. To help her prove it to herself, he entered her into a televised talent show in Tacoma. Loretta stepped up nervously, but when she began to sing, she stunned the judges. She won first place, but instead of a recording contract or cash prize, she walked away with nothing more than a wristwatch. Still, that small, anticlimactic victory changed everything. A man named Norm Burley, watching from Canada, heard her voice and was instantly captivated. And from that moment on, he made it his mission to figure out how to launch Loretta Lynn into the spotlight. You see, Burley was blown away the moment he heard Loretta Lynn sing. Her voice moved him so deeply that he arranged a professional recording session and sent Loretta and her husband Dew all the way to Hollywood at his own expense. When he heard the finished track, his excitement turned into action. He founded an entirely new label, Zero Records, with Loretta as its first major star. But Loretta and Dew weren't content to wait around hoping success would find them. While Burley stayed in Vancouver building the company, the couple hit the ground hard in the U.S., determined to push the record themselves. Dew's first strategy was simple but bold. He mailed 3,500 copies of the single, each paired with a photo of Loretta, to radio stations across America. Not a single one wrote back. It was a harsh gut punch. So they switched to a new plan, one that required even more grit. If radio stations wouldn't respond by mail, Loretta and Dew would show up at their doors. They drove across the country, hand-delivering records to anyone who owned a microphone and a station signal. They slept in their car, lived on park bench sandwiches, and kept pushing forward. Eventually, their long, hungry journey carried them all the way to Nashville. And that's where everything changed. When they arrived, they learned that "I'm a Honky-Tonk Girl" had already taken off without them. The single had climbed to number 14 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, an astonishing triumph for a debut record. Suddenly, radio programmers and promoters knew her name. The invitations followed fast. First, a touring spot with the Wilburn Brothers, then an appearance on Ernest Tubb's hugely popular radio program, The Midnight Jamboree. That single performance opened the door to the most coveted stage in country music, the Grand Ole Opry. One invitation to perform, and now the world was listening. Loretta had a future unfolding in front of her at full speed. But success came with new expectations. She needed to write more songs, more stories, more truth. Her personal life handed her plenty to work with. Her marriage to Doo was passionate, devoted, and explosive. His temper ran hot, and during violent arguments, he could be frightening. He once smashed a jar against a wall, and at times, he hit her. Loretta, never one to stay silent, famously fought back twice as hard. One of their worst fights ended with Doo's teeth landing on the floor. Loretta froze, terrified of what would come next, but instead of rage, he burst out laughing. He went snaggletooth until her music brought in enough money to fix them. Their marriage was turbulent, but it gave Loretta a lifetime of raw emotional material. All she needed was someone to trust, someone who understood her. That person arrived in 1961. Loretta was invited to perform "I Fall to Pieces" live on the radio, a song made famous by her idol, Patsy Cline. Patsy, recovering at home from a serious car accident, heard Loretta's performance over the speakers and was immediately moved. She sent her husband straight to the station to bring Loretta to her home. When the two women met, they bonded instantly. A friendship sparked, loyal, generous, and life-changing. Patsy became her guide through the world of fame. She taught her how to stand on a stage, how to shape a performance, how to sing with power, how to carry herself like a star. She helped Loretta decorate her home, choose outfits, and even taught her how to drive and shave her legs. They shared food, secrets, clothes, even underwear, according to Loretta. Their closeness was so special that it later inspired the film Patsy and Loretta. In her memoir, Coal Miner's Daughter, Loretta wrote that Patsy essentially stamped her career with legitimacy. Some singers resented how quickly Loretta had risen, but Patsy defended her, supported her, and helped her find her voice both on stage and off. After meeting Patsy, Loretta didn't just survive the industry, she learned how to stand up for herself inside it. But not everyone she trusted had Patsy's heart. While Loretta was growing fast in Nashville, she signed with the Wilburn Brothers Publishing Company. To their credit, they helped her move from Zero Records to the powerhouse label Decca Records, a major leap in her career. But that deal came with a painful cost. Loretta later discovered that the company claimed ownership of her entire songwriting catalog. Every lyric, every melody, hers, but not legally hers. She would spend the next 30 years fighting to win her rights back. Even that battle couldn't stop her rise. Her debut single at Decca carried a telling title, Success. It climbed the Billboard charts for 16 weeks, and she followed it with hit after hit. Yet none of those songs were written by her. Not yet. Then she gave birth to twins, took time to recover, and returned with a song of her own creation, Dear Uncle Sam, a heartbreaking story of a woman facing the pain of watching her husband leave for Vietnam. The country music world had never heard anything like it. Honest, immediate, emotionally raw. Listeners felt it in their bones. It became her first major self-written breakthrough. And even that wasn't the peak. Something even bigger was waiting on the horizon, when real life became her lyrics. Now, Loretta Lynn was just 34 years old when she became a grandmother. 2 years after giving birth to twins, her oldest daughter, only 18, had a baby of her own in 1966. The Lynn household was growing fast, louder, busier, and a whole lot more crowded. Before long, Loretta and her husband Oliver Doolittle Lynn realized they needed more room, more land, more space to breathe. That same year, they came across a ranch they instantly fell in love with. It was big, quiet in its own way, and wrapped in history. But there was a catch, not a small one either. If they bought this ranch, they wouldn't just own a home. They would own the entire town of Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. A whole town. Buildings, land, mysteries, memories, ghosts, everything. Loretta and Doo looked at each other, weighed the risk, and jumped. They bought the ranch, bought the town, and stepped right into a place built in the 1800s, one that carried far more than charm. Hurricane Mills was restless. Locals whispered about spirits that never left, and it didn't take long before the Lynn family started experiencing things for themselves. Her daughters claimed they saw Confederate soldiers wandering the property, full-bodied apparitions, not just shadows in the corner of the eye. Loretta herself often spoke about a woman in mourning, seen both inside the house and wandering the graveyard outside. The ranch wasn't just old, it was alive. Even generations later, strange things continued to happen. Loretta's grandson, Anthony Bruto, once described a moment when the power went out in the house, shutting everything down. But a single chandelier in one room glowed on, bright as daylight. The unsettling part was that every light in that room shared the same breaker. If one went off, they all should have. Yet there stood the chandelier, alone, shining, refusing to go dark like the rest of the house. What tied all these eerie experiences together was the history beneath their feet. After digging into the past, the Lynns discovered that Hurricane Mills had been the site of a Civil War battle. Many believed that soldiers were still buried deep in the soil, restless, unfinished, still marching. And that grieving woman Loretta kept seeing? Some say she was Beulah Anderson, a mother who died heartbroken after losing her child. And the name Anderson kept appearing again and again, almost like a thread woven into the land. Even the original owner of the home carried that name, James Anderson. The past was never really gone, it simply shared the property. But Hurricane Mills wasn't just a place of ghosts. It became the birthplace of ideas, grit, and music that would shape Loretta Lynn's career. One night backstage, Loretta met a woman terrified her husband was running off with someone else. Loretta's reply was calm, sharp, and full of fire. That moment sparked something. She went home and turned that spark into a song. "You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man." It exploded across the country, and for the first time in history, a female country artist wrote a #1 hit. She kicked open a door many women would walk through after her. But while Loretta could conquer the charts, she could not conquer her marriage. Doolittle Lynn, Mooney Doo, was complicated. Charming one minute, destructive the next. He disappeared when Loretta was pregnant with their first child. He cheated, even with her own sister-in-law. He drank too much, argued too hard, and left Loretta to raise 6 children, mostly on her own. She washed diapers and hauled water less than 24 hours after giving birth. She suffered 2 miscarriages, battled blood poisoning, and nearly died because they couldn't afford hospital care. When she needed a C-section with her 3rd baby, she was underage and required her husband's consent. He was off logging in the woods. She delivered without him. That kind of pain doesn't stay quiet. It pushes itself into the world. Loretta poured those wounds into songs. First came "Don't Come Home A-Drinkin'" with "Lovin' on Your Mind," another #1 hit built from frustration and truth. Then came "Fist City," a blunt warning to any woman creeping around her marriage. It was bold, raw, a punch in the jaw disguised as music. Fans loved it. Radio stations banned it. But no matter how she wrote, how she fought, how she warned, Doo never stopped cheating. Women came and went. The drinking continued. Sometimes Loretta preferred her tour bus to her own home. Not because she wanted distance, but because the silence of hotel rooms and highways felt safer than the chaos waiting behind her front door. Even still, she kept writing. She once said that most lines in her songs were written for him, aimed like arrows he never quite dodged. And then came a heartbreak she could never write her way out of. Patsy Cline, her best friend, her teacher, her fire, died in a plane crash in 1963. Loretta had already known Patsy was afraid she wouldn't live long, but nothing could prepare her for the reality. When the news arrived, Loretta felt something rip away. A mentor, a sister, a voice that held her up when the world got heavy. She wondered who she would talk to, who she would laugh with, who she would raise hell with in Nashville if Patsy were still alive. She later said that if young girls reading her story learned anything, it should be this: find a friend like Patsy. Because when you find a friend like that, you have everything. And after losing her best friend, surviving her marriage, raising a growing family, and standing her ground through storms both real and supernatural, Loretta Lynn did exactly what she was always meant to do. She took everything she'd lived through, every ghost, every heartbreak, every triumph, and carried it across America, one song at a time. Loretta Lynn painfully died after exposing her husband's truth. Doolittle Lynn's hard living caught up with him early. By 1992, he was already undergoing heart surgery, and the years that followed only brought more struggle. His diabetes worsened until doctors delivered the devastating verdict: both of his legs would have to be removed. At this point, Loretta Lynn was still earning, still touring, still a force in country music. But she didn't think twice. She stepped away from the spotlight to care for him herself. It wasn't enough to save him. Just 5 days short of his 70th birthday, Doolittle Lynn died from complications related to his diabetes and heart failure. Loretta stayed by his side until the very end, even singing to him as his life slipped away. Their marriage had been equal parts love and chaos, beautiful, bruising, and deeply intertwined. Loretta later admitted something most people wouldn't dare say out loud. Without Doolittle, there might not have been a Loretta Lynn the legend. He bought her first guitar, pushed her toward a microphone, and believed she had a talent worth betting their future on. She said she could never have done it alone, that whatever their marriage was, it built the woman country music would one day call iconic. After he was gone, she faced something she had never known: life by herself. She was in her mid-60s, and the grief tore through her with real, living weight. Long after the funeral, the loss still hovered like a fog. 12 years later, their daughter, Patsy Lynn, told Rolling Stone that her mother still acted as though Doolittle had simply gone away for a while. And 7 years after that, Loretta herself admitted that Patsy was right. Moving forward never came easy. Part of that was because she had never really lived life on her own terms. She had gone straight from her father's household to a husband who ran her career like a business operation. Doolittle wasn't just her partner. He was her manager, her motivator, her decision-maker. She remembered him telling her she was as good as any woman on the radio, so they might as well go make some money. And they did. Still, Loretta didn't leap into fame willingly. In fact, she once shared that, at the beginning, she didn't have much say at all. Doolittle told her she could sing for 2 years, buy them a house, and then they'd get out of the business. But those 2 years were rough. She remembered surviving on 1 hamburger a day while out on the road. He was the boss, no question. She didn't really start speaking her mind until success itself gave her courage. Even then, she never made decisions without discussing them with him first. And their marriage, everyone in country music knew it was wild, sometimes dangerous, and full of heartbreak. Loretta revealed in her autobiography that the most painful wound Doolittle ever inflicted came in the middle of one of his affairs. He told her he was leaving, while she was literally giving birth to their son. The betrayal cut deep, yet she stayed. Their bond never truly broke. So when she lost him, the grief didn't fade with time. For years, she thought she saw him in crowds, in rooms, in memories that refused to settle. Eventually, she turned to the one outlet that had always known how to hold her pain: songwriting. She wrote "I Can't Hear the Music," a tribute to the man who shaped every stage of her life. And then something unexpected happened. It was 2004. Loretta Lynn was 72 years old, an age when most legends slow down. Instead, she stepped into a studio with Jack White, one of rock's most electrifying young figures at the time. Together they created Van Leer Rose, her 42nd album, raw and fearless. It shot to #2 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart, proving that her influence stretched far beyond her generation. It was the world saying she hadn't just lasted. She was still relevant, still powerful, still Loretta. The truth behind her last years. Just like her husband Du, Loretta's later years were filled with health battles, and through the 2010s, those struggles became harder to ignore. Yet, if there was one thing everyone knew about Loretta, it was that she refused to back down. She performed every chance she got, pushing through setbacks with the stubborn strength of someone who had been fighting her whole life. In 2011, pneumonia sent her to the hospital. A year later, knee surgery forced her to slow down and cancel a few shows. Then came 2016, and with it a fall that left her struggling just to breathe deeply enough to sing. A dual show went on without her that night, carried entirely by her sister Crystal Gale. It was clear the road ahead would not be easy. The real scare arrived in 2017. Loretta suffered a stroke at home in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, and news spread quickly through her official channels. She had just turned 85, and suddenly every tour date, every show, every appearance came to a halt. In an interview with People magazine, she opened up about the fear that washed over her in that moment. The first thought that hit her was not just survival, but whether her voice would survive with her. Singing was all she had ever known, so the possibility of losing it felt like losing herself. Recovery was slow, and life threw another blow only a year later when she broke her hip. Many doubted she would bounce back from so much at once, but Loretta stayed defiant. She talked openly about her progress, proud that she could still move, still speak, still sing. The world kept waiting for her to fade, but she remained unshaken in her belief that she could keep going. Even as her body weakened, her mind stayed sharp. The scares made her think practically about the future. She reportedly began planning her own funeral arrangements, converting assets into cash so her children wouldn't bear the burden later. She wanted her final send-off to run on her terms, down to the location and who would sing. She wished to be laid to rest beside her husband and children on the family's sprawling ranch in Hurricane Mills. Most of all, she wanted room for the fans who had loved her for decades. Her vision was simple: the ranch gates open, music rising into the air, her children, grandchildren, and dear friend Dolly Parton singing her home. Even after the stroke, she still found moments to shine. In September 2017, she made a celebrated return to the stage to help induct Alan Jackson into the Country Music Hall of Fame. She needed assistance standing, but her presence filled the room. When she joined him in singing "Will the Circle Be Unbroken," it felt like a living symbol of resilience. But time did not stop testing her. A New Year's Day fall in 2018 slowed her recovery again. And soon, rumors began swirling. Tabloids claimed she was dying, bedridden, or near the end. Loretta refused to let those stories write her obituary. She went straight to Facebook, laughing off the headlines and threatening with a playful edge only she could pull off to take those rumors to Fist City. It was classic Loretta. Tough, witty, still very much alive. Her creativity never stopped either. In 2021, at 88, she released what would become her final album, Still Woman Enough. It featured Reba McEntire, Carrie Underwood, and songs co-written with her daughter, Patsy Lynn Russell. The album connected her past to her present, tying the spirit of "You Ain't Woman Enough" to a new generation of women. Patsy explained that her mother understood the bigger picture, that the song wasn't just about rivalry, but about women standing beside one another, surviving together. The album included new recordings, fresh takes on classics like Coal Miner's Daughter and Honky Tonk Girl, and it was clear. Loretta still had more to say. Before she passed, she was actually contracted for 5 albums with Sony Legacy. She completed 4, including Full Circle in 2016, which even earned a Grammy nomination. All of them were produced by Patsy and John Carter Cash, making the music as personal as it was powerful. Loretta once said she wrote for women, for herself, her friends, the mothers, the wives, the ones living lives like hers. She didn't sing for men. She sang for those who needed to hear that they were not alone. On October 4th, 2022, Loretta Lynn died peacefully in her sleep at her beloved ranch in Hurricane Mills. She was 90 years old. Her family's announcement spoke of love and peace, the kind every artist hopes to find at the end of a long road. Tributes poured in instantly. Fans, artists, and industry voices remembered her not only as a star, but as a force, someone who changed what women could say, sing, or stand for in country music.